Hello there, and welcome back to my YouTube channel and to today's video all about how to pass your upcoming ACCA financial reporting, that's the F7 exam, and to achieve 71% self-studying in 9 weeks. Well, how did my guest today do that? I'm delighted to be joined by Nicole, who's going to walk and talk us through her experiences of passing the financial reporting exam and to get some tips to help you with your upcoming exam. So Nicole, feel free to introduce yourself.
So I'm Nicole and I've just recently passed the FR exam with 71%. And what I started off doing was kind of looked on, like you say, look at the resources that are available. So I went on the ACCA website and had a look at, the syllabus before I even looked at any content or any study material. Look at the syllabus and really get an understanding of what I am going to be learning. I think that's probably the best place to start. And then from there, I kind of, obviously I was self-studying, so I got my books from Kaplan, and I kind of briefly skimmed the course content of the study text to kind of get a feel of, again, what I'm going to be learning. And then after 2 weeks, I kind of then really draw down on the syllabus of the FR exam. So ACCA kindly give you section A, section B, section C, and they kind of break it up into sections of what's going to be tested. And I really focus on them sections, and I make sure that I focus and spend a few days doing each section in my study phase. So I do about 4 weeks of that, and I really get to grips with what it is I'm learning and kind of writing my own notes. And I'm not really one to keep writing loads of notes and stuff like that. So I tend to do and it sounds very year 4, but spider diagrams. I find that helps me massively.
Everyone learns in different ways, but for context as well, were you working full-time at the same time as studying for this exam?
Yep, so work full-time, and I would get home. So I'd wake up. So for me, I found that it was easier to wake up early, get 2 hours in before work, do a full day, and then come home from work and do 2 hours. So I would do 4 hours every day, and on weekends I would do from 10 till 6.
Crikey. So, I mean, lots of people have read the title on this for the 9 weeks of self-studying and thinking it's all sunshine and rainbows. But would you recommend the 9 weeks, and with looking back on it now, or would you more sort of spread it out? What would be your best advice on there?
If you want to pass and you want to do well and you want to feel confident going into the exam, you can self-study. However, with anything, you have to put effort in. And self-study, unfortunately, I wouldn't have been able to pass unless I was doing 4 hours every day during the week and then 8 hours on a weekend.
It all accumulates, does it, on there? But
and it's hard work.
It never easy on there. But you touched on the different sections, A, B, and C. From your experience during the exam, which one was the easiest section? Which one was the hardest one? What was your opinion on that?
So in my experience, I don't like the written, as most students will probably say. I despise the written bit. So I tend to focus a lot on section C rather than A and B, because I know if you kind of get the basic principles and understand what the questions are asking you, you can kind of quickly go through them. So the C for me took up a lot of my time. So I focused every day, and I would practice section C questions every day in that 9 weeks. Even if I didn't understand it, I would still try and then keep reviewing what I was getting wrong. So when it comes to the actual exam, I would always do section C first, without a doubt, because that's the one I hate. I hate section C. And I find, and every exam, it has worked. So I do section C first, because then I tend to give myself an hour on that. And I know they suggest not really to do an hour, but I give myself an hour to do both questions. And in the FR, I got a single company set of accounts. And it was like doing it, because I'd done it so much, it was like being at home and doing it.
Yeah,
So
like
there was no
clockwork.
surprises. Yeah, no surprises.
Hey, spot on. I know also the thing to remember is at the start of the exam, you've got the most amount of energy, fully focused,
Right.
because
Yeah.
section A and B, multiple choice on there. I mean, it was a case of you're going to make some mistakes, but you could always come back and do it. So I think it's a
Yeah.
really good tactic, to be fair on there.
Yeah.
But from your opinion, what are the main topics that you really focused in on for the financial reporting exam?
So as part of, before I even start studying, I read the think like the marker.
Mm-hmm.
And this exam especially, the feedback was that no students weren't using the scenario in the written bit to answer the question. So students on a 20-mark question were getting no marks.
Yeah.
So I really focused on that and really understood, like, what does the examiner want? Why is the examiner telling me that a director has taken dividends out on the return on capital employed, ratio question? And that's because I have to talk about that and what impact that has on the ratio. And that gets you 4 marks just by talking and explaining what it is and why.
Yeah, you get lots of people who come out of the financial reporting exam who have written loads down there, but they've answered the question they want to answer, not what the examiner's looking for. That they talk about it all the time in the actual external examiner's report. So all these free resources are available online. And how were you for your time management in the exam? Because I've read that constantly, that the financial reporting exam, students run out of time and don't answer 100 marks.
Okay, so there's going to be a lot of, like, for me, I had plenty of time and I had enough time to check all my answers.
Oh, good.
So I kind of was sat there and was like, okay. And looking back, I probably did miss silly marks. I probably could have got 80%. But by the time 2 hours had gone in, you're tired, your brain's a bit like, oh, come on, like, and I kind of focused more on section C and making sure I got all their marks in section C rather than B and A. So for me, my time management when I was revising, I would have my stopwatch on and I would test myself every time. I would never go over that time frame. So I would pretend section A, section B, and section C questions, every time I practiced them, I was in time managed, like I was constantly in the time frame for the exam.
Right, I see. So anyone watching this with their pen and paper must do questions to time, don't go over. But you mentioned a good point earlier about even on the section C questions that you didn't particularly know about or you're struggling with, you still had a go. Did you avoid looking at the answer, for example? Did you have a go first of all, then look at the answer? Because lots of students just tend to go, oh, here we go, question and answer. I'll just read them through. That's the same. But what are your thoughts on that?
With financial reporting, you can't do that because every question they give you, they will do it in another way. So they're quite sneaky, especially on the written bit. So for me, even if I didn't know how to answer it, which was majority of the time, especially in my studying phase, I would sit there and be like, oh, and as long as you start to write something, anything is better than nothing. And then when you review it, write 5 points of why you got it wrong. Like, what did you get wrong? And that for me, every time I went to do a section C question, because I found that the hardest, I would look back before I did one and think, right, I got this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. Okay. And then when you develop your writing skills.
Oh no, completely agree on there. And just trying to make sure you focus in on the scenario. So even in the written bit, referring to the directors' names, the company names, because then that is what the marker is looking for on there. But from some of the other questions, A and B, did you use any technical articles to build up your knowledge for financial reporting? Did they help you out?
Yeah. So on I think it was, what are they called? The past papers. So I looked at the past 5 past papers. I looked at section A and section B of why they got wrong. And again, what I tend to do is I try to attempt the question. So I do this in revision phase. So I save them until once I've done all the topics and I answer the questions that people got wrong and see if I get it right. And if I get it wrong, it's because I'm doing what the examiner said that the other students did. So you kind of learn from that as well. So I find that's quite a good tip. I do that in revision phase.
That's all right. That's all good. And just for context, from your 9 weeks on there, how many weeks did you spend on tuition, just learning the content? How many weeks did you spend on revision and sort of past paper questions? What was your sort of split on there?
So I think it's really important. When I say I was studying, I wasn't reading a book. So that's, I think a lot of students get that a lot of students will focus more on reading and writing notes. So for me, I would read a section and do the practice questions in the exam kit. And I would constantly do that. And then I'd mark what I got wrong. And then I'd continue. And I'd keep doing the questions. Every day I would be doing questions. I would be doing more questions than I would be reading. So I spent probably 4 weeks on the study text.
Yeah.
And then the remainder of the weeks doing ACCA exams on the exam platform. Every time I was doing section C questions, I was in the exam blank workspace on the ACCA website. I would never do it on paper. I was constantly just preparing like I was in the exam. So when it came to it, I'm not nervous, and because I get quite nervous in exams anyway. So it was
we've all been there on the sleepless nights, Nicole. Don't worry, it's all right. But you do make a very good point there as to you're doing it as if you're actually in the exam, so that when you got into the exam, I've already used this practice platform, I've already attempted these sort of single entity accounts, I've already done some of the multiple choice questions, I've already made the silly mistakes. So that makes a massive difference on there, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially with spacing. So in financial reporting, you have to lay out your answers. When I was in the learning phase, I've really struggled to how to lay it out, because you need easy marks and your work needs to be clear so you can get them easy marks. So I focus really on exam technique as well. And that's probably a key thing for financial reporting.
Yeah, I was used to answer my questions as to, imagine I had to mark this myself on there. And you've got to remember the marker's got hundreds to go through. So I want mine to be laid out nicely. I'm not going to write masses in one big piece of paper. I'm going to give paragraph here, paragraph there, leave a gap, because then they're looking at it and going, right, James has written 3 or 4 lines here. How many marks can I give for that? On to the next one and the next one. What other sort of exam tips that are springing to your mind now that could help someone out if they've got the exam tomorrow?
Read the question. So in financial reporting, they like to use different terms. So I think a good one is if there was an asset and you had to use the revaluation model of property. If the property was in a company, it uses a different method. So automatically, most students will go to, oh, it's the cost method, let's depreciate it. So you click depreciation, you move on to the next one. When actually it's not that, because the scenario tells you it relates to something else. So reading the question is, I know it's easier said than done. And it's kind of just thinking about what is the examiner asking me?
I agree. And on the multiple choice questions, just walk and talk it through as to saying, right, why is that answer wrong as well? Because then it's like the old quiz show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, of 50-50. We get rid of a few, and then I'm picking 1 out of 2 rather than 1 out of 4. And I'm justifying it to myself as well, because there are these outliers. There are just some answers that I've read on past paper questions. You go, there is no way, not a chance that could be the answer. But I could see why people would put it at the end of the day under the exam pressure. Also, I mean, have you got any other, what were the best resources that you found? Because obviously you had such a short time frame. Did you use some of the flick notes as well? Obviously you've done lots of past paper questions.
I use the ACCA website for a lot of it. So they do a section where they talk about intangible assets, and a previous examiner will talk through. So intangible assets was something I understood intangible assets, but the questions were just so hard. So I kind of went back to that and kind of really got a highlighter and highlighted the key points of it, and they have so many different articles on sections that you're going to be examined on. I found that probably the most helpful resource on there. Obviously watching your YouTube videos helped massively, and getting other students' feedbacks as well. And there kind of is, you know, time management. ACCA say it all the time, time management is key, and practice is key. And ACCA have so many available resources to students that you can use that are free.
I agree. But it came back to what we mentioned at the start of the recording. It's, you're going to get out of this exam what you put into it, and the more hours that you do. And I think the real key thing from this video is that you get how precise you were in what you were doing, because you knew where the added value was. That there'll be lots of students who maybe have watched this and have just started to read through the whole core text. I mean, what would be your advice on there as to how important is application and understanding to the requirement in this exam for you?
I think you have to, so it's really important. You can't quickly brief the syllabus, because you will have a 10-mark question on a tiny section. So that's really important. And ACCA do say that in all their articles as well. So you do have to read it, and it is boring when you're reading through it. I found it not the most exciting. But then when you're doing practice questions, going back to your study text and thinking, okay, why did I get that wrong? And then when you're in the exam, because you've done it so much, it's like second nature. And being okay with that, you don't need to get 100%, I think, is a key thing as well. And being okay with, okay, I'm not going to get 100%, but let's try and aim for 90%, for example.
Oh, exactly. And the other thing is, I would actually expect the odd few questions of stuff you go, I've only touched on this very briefly in my revision and stuff, but I'm going to think about it logically, go through it, work out what we're given. And the other thing just to note on record is that, remember, the FR knowledge pulls forward into the SBR exam. So getting a really good understanding and high score on this exam will help you out with the SBR exam. So if you're just skimping through 50-51, that could come back to bite you later down the line, I would say, on there. But Nicole, are there any other final words of wisdom, nuggets of information that you think, if a student watching this has got their pen and paper at the ready, exam tomorrow, next week, what's your final words and top tips to get them past?
Something that most students don't know is ACCA for every exam will do where they get private markers to mark your work. And I did that for my financial reporting exam. So any students that is registered to get information come through of any free resources that ACCA are offering, I would highly recommend registering for that. I'd use that all the time, so that's really helpful.
Oh, nice. So someone will mark your work if you're registered for it? Yeah,
so you just go on to for financial reporting. They did a day where students, they uploaded a section C question. And the first 200 students had an experienced exam marker marking it, and then everyone else just had a normal marker marking it. And that helped me with a feedback from, I'd done it in exam conditions, and they give you written feedback from one of the ACCA markers. So they do that quite a lot. I did that with a few of my other exams as well. So
fantastic.
Keep an eye out for that in your inbox, because it tends to go into the junk. So
oh, right. Okay. Well, obviously, me being such a nice chap, what I'll do for anyone who's watching at this point is I will put the link in the bottom of the video, so you can just click it. It'll take you through to the free resources, and you can get yourself signed up on there. But I mean, I have to also say, Nicole, thank you so much for your time today, your tips, your insights as well. I hope you've enjoyed being on the channel as well. I mean, who knows? They could get lots of people watching this, doing financial reporting, and it could be the difference in getting that 50-51. Have you enjoyed your debut today?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's all right. Well, guys, if you've got any questions or comments, or just let myself and Nicole know how you get on in your exam, we'd love to hear from you. Leave it in the comments below, and where you're watching this around the world. That'll be the main thing. If you have enjoyed the video, as ever, make sure you like it and subscribe so you get access to the free materials. And thank you very much, Nicole, as well. I mean, what would be the main thing that you'd take away from today? I mean, for financial reporting, I mean, is it just eyes down on the prize and do your best on it?
Have fun with it. Have fun with it.
There'll be someone panicking watching this video in revision, but James, Nicole.
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty hard. Just have fun.
Well, on that bombshell, we'll see you next time. Cheers.